Yo, pass the mic over this way. I'm about to be late.
Become aware of one thing. You have everything, but you don't have yourself.
Welcome back to your 12th favorite podcast, Burnin with G.
Welcome back, Burnin with G, episode 6. Today I have my good friend in the building, Mylon Kemp.
What up, bro?
So tell me a little bit about yourself, bro.
Oh man, I guess relating to the topic that we're talking about, study philosophy at UC San Diego, emphasis in the mind, and now I'm working with children with autism and doing research in the lab at UCSD with kids with autism. Always had an interest in philosophy.
Cool.
You know, the deeper questions, the whys about life. That's always dragging me into these type of topics.
Solid. So today, we're talking about death. I feel like with all the people that have been dying recently, it's just been on everybody's mind.
Yeah.
Kobe, Pop Smoke recently. We had Juice WRLD. That's just something that I feel like everyone's processing right now. So I feel like now is the best time to be talking about this.
Yeah, and it's a great topic because it's something that no one wants to think about. It's that echo in the background that no one's really ever really thinking about. And then once these reminders come, people dying, it messes with us because it reminds us that we can die.
Yeah.
And especially when we see these, these figures like Kobe or Juice WRLD or Mac Miller, whoever, these people who we viewed as so great. Once you become that great, you become almost immortal or superhuman. You become more than just the average human.
Yeah.
And with Kobe, I'm pretty sure everyone thought he was invincible. I for sure did. When I heard that the plane crashed, I literally was like, everyone in that plane died except for him. You can't kill Kobe. And I think that these people become so great that we think, wow, if they can die, then I for sure can die. They're more than just a human. I'm so susceptible to dying, and it just echoes, and it's just terrifying. It's really just, it messes with us.
Definitely.
But we can always die.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's something that's very interesting to look at. If we even take the coronavirus, it's really interesting how the media kind of picks and chooses. People die all the time from the flu. Millions of people die around the world for all the smallest diseases and viruses. But it's they pick and choose. Ebola, all of a sudden, big deal. Yeah. And they pick this one, it's a big deal. So it's just and I think where the interesting thing is that American lives are oftentimes valued more. So when they are oftentimes the ones who are in harm, then all of a sudden it's a very big deal.
Right.
As opposed to the millions of people who are dying in third world countries.
Yeah, million kids starving in Yemen right now.
Exactly.
All the time. The majority of the world is dying at a rate way faster and way more terrible than we are.
Yeah.
But it only becomes a big deal when we are the ones who are dying. That's the really interesting thing about it. And I think it really relates to this idea called terror management theory.
What is that?
Pretty much it says that we're all constantly aware of the fact that we're going to die.
Okay.
And it's this thing, we live in a world where we kind of have this paradoxical nature. We have this self-preservation for survival. But at the same time, we know we're going to die. We have a strong desire for life, but also an extended awareness of our inevitable annihilation.
Okay.
And because of that, we constantly are avoiding thoughts about death. We're constantly avoiding things about death. And when something does remind us about death, it terrifies us.
Yeah.
And pretty much we have all these solutions for dealing with it. We have certain beliefs, certain ideas, and this extends from Ernest Becker's denial of death, which we can get into later. But pretty much there's evidence that shows that when you remind someone of their death, it makes us go more into this animalistic mindset, this more self-preservation, more selfish mindset where we really want to protect ourselves, and we stop caring about other people as much. We start caring more about ourselves. It's more I'm going to take care of myself, and you survive however you're going to survive.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people like Trump and a lot of these I'm not going to call him a dictator, but dictators in the past have manipulated this to get people to start creating enemies out of other people. It's the way Trump did it was with talking about people who immigrants. They talk about immigrants as aliens. You create this image of them as something that's dangerous. You relate them with aliens, and then you turn them into this vicious thing, and it makes people be like, well, I need to protect myself. I need to protect myself. No matter what, I need to protect myself. And it's a thing people really manipulate. And I think that this whole talk about coronavirus and all these other things that happen in this way, like, because Americans matter so much, we get in this mindset of like, we need to protect ourselves. And like, it becomes so important because we're just constantly in this world where like, because being an American, you can avoid thinking about death so much. Yeah. When do you ever need to think about it? You know, we're like, the way we live, like, your life is good. Yeah, you don't. Being someone who lives in Yemen, Africa, you know, these third world countries, India, it's unavoidable. You know, you walk outside, you're gonna see something that reminds you of your mortality. But living here in America, I think we have the biggest illusion of survival all the time. Exactly. You know,
I think that does. It just shows too. Yeah. You know, it is kind of cool.
And it's interesting how you like, you know, you think about it because you think back to like the Buddha, right? And I think it's interesting because it's this, you know, Asian story, right? But I think it relates to us very, very much so because the Buddha was kept in his castle, right? Kept in his mansion, and his father made it so that like he would never be harmed, nothing bad would ever happen to him, he would never see anything harmful, right? One day he escapes.
Sees death,
right? Sees a sick person. Another day he escapes, sees a person dying, and it completely changes the way he views reality. His entire life, he realizes he's been living a lie. How did I never know about this? Oh my God, I'm gonna die. I had no clue that this was gonna happen to me. And that's kind of how Americans are. You know, we live this life, and we never have to see it. And then, you know, you go to somewhere like Mexico, and you're just like, oh my God, this is terrible. And there's this feeling of like when I was in Mexico not too long ago, where I wanted to like leave right away because it's so uncomfortable.
I definitely feel that. No, it's crazy how it does that, right? I went to India over winter break and I felt so weak-minded because I just felt uncomfortable. You know, when as we first got to India, we went to Chennai, which is a really big city in Tamil Nadu. And
what was the last word you said?
Tamil Nadu. That's it's hard. It's Tamilnadu. Okay. So that's like one of the nicest places in the. It's like a city, so you know there's a lot of buildings. It's all very similar to here. So then we progressively had moved from there to like more rural areas, and it was like I wasn't able to adapt as quickly. So exactly what you were saying with Mexico, I just felt uncomfortable. But I was like, I'm not any better than any of these people here, just by luck, and I wouldn't even say lucky. It was just chance that I just happened to be born in a different country. You know, like I didn't do anything to not deserve it. 100%. And it's like, if I was like, when I saw the kids and stuff, they weren't looking at each other like, oh, our life sucks so badly. Like, why are we here? They were happy. Absolutely. They were around playing with their little tires. They were doing what they were doing. But that's what was normal to them. Right. They didn't look at me and go, oh, this man is so much better than me. That idea of like, my life is more worth than yours or anything just wasn't there. Right. And I feel like that uncomfortability definitely comes from the fact that we're just not exposed to those type of like conditions here that much.
And I like what you said about you don't deserve any better than them. I had this teacher, senior year, an English teacher. His name was Mr. Barrier. Okay. And every time you asked him how he was doing, he always said better than I deserve. And I never really understood that, you know? It was just kind of this thing amazing. Where I was like, yeah, why does he say that? Better than you deserve. People would ask him, why do you say that, Mr. Barrier? He would never really explain himself. And then, you know, as I progressed through life and got a little bit wiser, you know, I kind of started to understand it. Yeah, that makes sense. Because, like, we don't deserve to be having the life that we have, you know? Like, we don't deserve better than anybody else, you know? We just happen to have it. Yeah. And those kids who are suffering, you know, they don't deserve the life they have either. Like, we really do live a life that is better than what we deserve all the time. And it's like, to people thought about it as it was something like morbid or like something sad, like better you deserve. Like, what do you mean? Like this, like, and in the moment I never really thought about it as bad, but I was just like, that's so interesting. But I knew that he was a really intelligent guy. I knew there had to be some truth to it, and now I understand it, dude. Like, we do live better than we deserve all the time. Like, it's truly beautiful, man.
That's an amazing English teacher.
Oh no,
was that senior year?
Senior year.
I feel like these senior year English teachers always be changing our life. Like, I had one just like that. We read 1984 with him. Oh, okay. He didn't care at all about grades or anything. He'd just come into class, and then he'd have two sides, and he'd like give a question, and he'd say, pick a side that you want to go to, and then go stand on there. Yeah. And he'd be like, oh, so in 1984, that was a good book too. Yeah. Bro. So those conversations got very interesting. I feel like no one really cared about grades, but everyone got something good out of it. Yeah. So these English teachers really be on top of their stuff. But that's really cool that your English teacher, you know, was preaching that from a very like young age, because it sticks with you.
Yeah, for sure.
That's cool.
And you know, that wisdom really carries on into everything you do. And you know, thinking back to death, like it's we truly are living every moment that we are alive is, we're doing better than we deserve. I feel like,
Yeah.
It really is a gift.
We're
Every single moment you have, and it's just interesting, like, because I guess the topic that you can get into from here is like, what is it that makes death bad in itself, right? And like, how did you start? Like, when did you start thinking about death, like, as a kid? Like, did you start thinking about it as a kid, when you got older? Like, what really brought it to the surface for you?
Like, the weird thing is I never really thought about death. Like, growing up, it just wasn't at the forefront of my mind. It was, so my grandmother had passed away. My mom's mom had passed away, and it didn't affect me at all. And it made me really sad to say that at that moment too. But what affected me more was just seeing my mom upset, way more than actually knowing that someone had passed away.
Right.
And then recently, my dad's mom passed away, and that was the first time I had actually seen a dead body buried, in person.
You saw someone who you once knew in this alive state,
Yes.
and now they were in this.
That was crazy,
state.
and I think that was really what brought it to the forefront of my mind, because we got to India, and she was in a coma, but she was able to breathe still. So I'd still been able to see her where it looked like there was still some sort of life inside
Something
of her.
there, right?
Something there.
Yeah.
Like, we didn't know if she could hear us, but we were like saying things to her, and it was just that hope that maybe she'll get better,
Right.
And it was like, that's when I realized how beautiful breathing is. Like, that's like two things: your eyes and your chest being able to move. Like, that's really what represents somebody being alive.
Absolutely.
One, your eyes being able to move this way and that way. Like, really, when people say your eyes are the key into your soul, like, it's true. Because that's really how you can tell that someone's alive, with their eyes moving. And then when your chest is moving up and down, it's like, okay, there's still something there that's making them continue to survive.
Right.
So being able to see that, and then the next day when it was just all done, when it was like, now it's just flesh. Now it's just, there's nothing here anymore.
Right.
And like, all those dreams, goals, everything that was once there, like, I want to take care of my kids, I wanted all those passions and things, were just like, the fact that it was just like gone was very like, that really could happen to all of us.
Yeah.
And
you
the
really
key into your soul, like, it's true.
You only get a certain amount
That's
of time.
really how you can tell
And
that
it's
someone's
like,
alive, with their eyes moving. And then when your chest is moving up and down, it's like, okay, there's still something there that's making them continue to survive.
Right.
So being able to see that, and then the next day when it was just all done, when it was like, now it's just flesh. Now it's just, there's nothing here anymore.
Right.
And like, all those dreams, goals, everything that was once there, like, I want to take care of my kids, I wanted all those passions and things, were just like, the fact that it was just like gone was very like, that really could happen to all of us.
Yeah. And you really only get a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And it's like,
technical difficulty. The camera had a little bit of issue, but we're back.
yeah.
So let's see, what were we talking about? So when the next day when she had stopped breathing, being able to see that. And that's when I first started thinking about, is there something like a soul? Like, is there something that was there that had just left? And I think that's something that, really brought death to something that, I was thinking about regularly. What about you? I remember the first time I met you. I met Mylon for the very first time, and he had come up to me and started talking to me about death, and we were just chilling in the car. It was raining outside, and he was like, have you ever thought about rain? And he was like, everything is just a circle. It just, and I was like, what? That's crazy, because I just met him. So you told me, when was the first time you ever thought about
that? That sounds like some shit I do. But well, first I want to add to what you were saying earlier about the breath, because, dude, that's like such a, like, it's crazy that you like gleaned that from that situation, because I remember I had this experience maybe a month ago where I was meditating, and sometimes you do meditation, there's different types you can do, but when I was doing it, I just started holding my breath for a really, really long time. And in that moment when I was holding my breath, I wanted nothing more than to like breathe the next second. And that was all I wanted in those moments when I'm holding my breath. Like, I want my breath so bad. You become so hyper grateful for your breath. And you take that breath, and it's pure joy.
Yeah.
Like, it's pure joy that you feel in that moment. And I called that, what I wrote down was, this is the first truth. Like, this is my first truth. It's my base truth. That no matter what, you always have access to joy because of your ability just to breathe. Just from your ability to breathe, like, your body will always feel joy in doing that. It just feels good. Like,
it does feel good. It does feel good. Yeah, no.
And it's like, it's one of the most beautiful things, you know? And it's crazy that you mentioned that, like, the chest going up and down, because, like, it's so beautiful. But going beyond that, when I start thinking about death, man, that's that's tough because where I grew up, I grew up in Hawthorne, which isn't the best part of LA, and I was just always aware of it, man. People were just dying left and right. The building I lived in got a drive-by on 3 times. People I knew passed away. I remember one of my friends told me, he said, I said goodnight to, or when we would leave each other, we say goodnight, and we always say goodnight. Like, you don't leave without saying goodnight to someone, and we're saying bye because you never know the next time if you're gonna see them or not. You never know if you're gonna see them again.
Okay.
And so I grew up thinking about death from a really young age, and I was always scared of it. I was always scared to go outside of my apartment building, and I was always scared to walk around, and I was always thinking about it. And you don't really know what you're scared of. You're just scared of this death, this dying thing that you're just always hearing about. People just are no longer here. And I think my biggest encounter with death was when my dad passed when I was 12. And I think that just literally flipped reality for me. Like, this person who, you idolize, this person who you create to be this gigantic figure, similar to how we were talking about Kobe earlier, you just never really imagine dying. And my dad was this big dude, worked out, this guy who just always viewed as protecting me, and he passed. And I was just like, oh, wait, this isn't what's supposed to happen. This isn't real. Like, reality just didn't feel right in that moment.
Okay.
And I just started realizing, this can happen to my mom, this can happen to my sister, this can happen to my brother, this can happen to me, where I'm just not going to be here anymore. And I just, from that point on, honestly, I just became hyper-focused on the thought of death. Always thinking about it, always wondering when it's going to come for me. I want to say that's the first time anxiety emerged for me, just really realizing, I can go at any point in time. And, I think now I've developed a more positive view of it, but then it was just purely negative, just purely thinking about, how am I going to die? When am I going to die? What is death? And it led into this mindset of, I think that thought of death can quickly escalate into depression. And for me, I just started realizing, everything dies. Everything dies.
Ends, yeah.
I'm going to die. This earth is going to die. It's going to be swallowed by the sun. Fucking heat death is going to, the universe is literally just going to be fucking black, empty, and cold.
Yeah.
And then I just started thinking, what is the point?
Yeah.
What is the point of me doing anything I'm going to do? Not even just anything. What is the point of me getting up right now? What is the point of me drinking this water? What's the point of me loving my mom? What's the point of me doing anything if I just know it's going to end?
Yeah, the existential crisis.
I developed existential anxiety so heavily. And, I'll talk to my friends about it. I'll talk to people about dude, it's just why should I do anything? If we're just going to die, everything you do doesn't matter.
Yeah.
The world's really just going to cease to exist at some point in time. Why should I do anything? Yes. And people were just dude, chill, bro. Chill out, bro. Everything's good. And I couldn't just chill. You know? It was hard for me. And honestly, life just started becoming very empty and meaningless for me at that point in time. And not in a good way. It was just, I just didn't care about life or myself, honestly.
Yeah, no, really interesting that you said that. I have these I feel like my mental state just goes in these roller coaster waves, and all of last week I was feeling that. And then my friend had just come home and told me, yo, the new BoJack season just came out. I was like, are you kidding me? That's so perfect, because I feel like that show always grounds me, and it reminds me. So BoJack, I know you haven't seen it before.
Yeah.
It's basically about
the horse, right?
Yeah. So there's a show about a group of people, and it's very interesting to see how they all struggle through life trying to find what makes them happy, or what that even means for them, right? So you have this one woman who's always writing. She loves writing, and she's maybe. So she has a very traumatic childhood, and she's because of all of that, I want to be able to create something so that creation, they're all some sort of artists, they're either actors, and I really like that part of it. None of them are just they're all creators, and they want to somehow impact the world and leave a mark on it in different ways. So in this last season, crazy, but it's just that idea of everything is going to end and nothing does matter is something that they all deal with.
Wow.
But
that's crazy.
And it's the way they come out of it is, you can look at it in two ways, right? One is nothing matters, so why do it? And the other way is nothing matters, so might as well literally put everything I have into it, just give it my all, and then die.
Exactly.
And seeing that slow process in their thought pattern was so cool to see, because it's like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
You know, I want to just finally give up all these like small stresses, like what is this person gonna think, you know, and just fully commit to whatever I do. It could be washing the dishes. I want to be the best dishwasher in the whole world.
Right.
You know, just really like find some sort of spiritual meaning and happiness and joy in every single thing you do, from tying your shoelaces to walking to riding your bike. It just doesn't matter. Right. And I think seeing that process happen for them was very inspirational for me, because it's like, I'm also ready to embark on that. Right.
Yeah. And honestly, like, it's crazy you say that, because so the reason I studied philosophy was definitely not because I wanted to make money. It was something, you know, a little bit deeper than that. It was, I just had all these questions.
Okay.
You know, why is there something rather than nothing? What is meaning? What is God? Why, you know, why am I alive? What does it really mean to be alive? And nothing I ever saw was talking about these things, you know? Everyone was just talking about basketball, you know, pop culture, this, and I was just like, girls don't care. Like, you guys understand that, like, we're all gonna fucking die? And once you calm down that fear, you know, obviously these things become a lot more important. But so in philosophy, I was able to really deal with this fear. Like, can't remember the philosopher who said it, but they said that the aim of philosophy is to learn how to die. And I feel like I really got that from it, you know? Like, and one thing that I really used to, like, be able to figure out that question of why should I do anything if I just know I'm gonna die? If there's no meaning, you know, objectively, like, because at that point in time I also had no belief in any type of God, nothing for me, because for me it was like, why would God ever let that happen to my dad? So I was like, God doesn't exist, nothing exists, or there's nothing, you know, everything's empty and meaningless. And so I had this, you know, very, I guess nihilistic, I don't know, atheist view. And I read this philosopher Sartre, right, which he pretty much is an existentialist. Existentialists believe that there's no objective meaning in the universe, right? But there is subjective meaning between us. And that's when I made this gigantic distinction between why it is that I should live my life.
Can you explain that a little further, the subjective meaning?
Of course. So objectively, right, that means like this is like a fact, a law, like this is something in reality. Like you could say objectively, there's a microphone right here because I could hit this, right? But subjectively is within your own mind, within your own consciousness, like some thought you have. Like if I were to say, you know, pizza is like the best food of all time. Subjectively, there's nothing to prove that, right? There's no way to measure that. There's nothing about that. And so for me, I was like, okay, objectively, if I'm looking at the grand scheme of life, there's no meaning. Everything is empty. Everything's pointless. But there is subjective meaning. That I decide what I give value to things. That I decide why I shouldn't be doing things. And that is when I realized what you said about I want to be the best dishwasher I could be. What meaning am I going to give myself for my life? What am I going to decide that my life means? And it was this beautiful, radical freedom that from nothing comes everything.
Makes sense.
Ex nihilo. And so that's pretty much how I started like living my life from there. The Bojack thing really makes me think about it, because that was also my life, going from this like, why should I do anything? I'm gonna die, to, oh, this is like why I'm gonna be the best at this, why I'm gonna be the best at that. And I found that subjectively I found a lot of meaning in my life. But I'm also aware of the fact that it doesn't ever actually really mean anything, you know? I'm not attached to it, because I'm just like, dude, like it doesn't really mean anything. Like, I'm giving this meaning right now. So I have the ability to like let go of something when it becomes too much for me to handle. I'm like, dude, all the meaning that this has, I'm giving this meaning. Whether, you know, it's a breakup, whether it's, you know, someone screwed me over, whatever, it's like, dude, this is all meaningful because I'm giving it meaning. It's nothing about this is objectively meaningful, you know?
And isn't that crazy powerful to really know
so
that
powerful, bro.
Your whole world is just in your head? It's, you could like tweak a little, you know, here and there, and just boom, completely different.
Absolutely, dude. I think it's one of the most powerful tools you can have for dealing with anything, you know. But a lot, you know, we do get stuck in patterns. We do get stuck in habits, and even though you know that, it really feels like objectively some shit is terrible.
It's terrible.
You know? Like,
it does.
And that even relates back to death, you know. Death feels like it's something that is objectively terrible, but you gotta ask, like, what is it that makes death bad?
That's a really good.
So like from there, I really, you know, I've written a few philosophy papers on it, and there's this one philosopher, Thomas Nagel, who really started talking about the topic of what is it that makes death bad. And there's this famous philosopher, Lucretius, right? And he created this thing called the Lucretian puzzle. This is pretty much what it says. It's an asymmetry, saying that because like we didn't exist for billions of years, right? Before we came here. Is there anything bad about that? No, right? Is there anything you're scared of, or you ever think like, oh my god, I wasn't here for billions of years, like damn, that's terrifying? No. So it's just going to be that afterlife as well. So it's not anything that we should be fearing or worrying about. Because if you didn't fear about it before, why should you be fearing it after?
That's crazy.
Interesting thought, right?
That is very interesting.
But here comes Thomas Nagel, as philosophers all do, just capping on each other all the time. He was like, well, let's think about this. You know, if somebody had, let's say there was someone who got hit in the head and his mental state was reduced to that of a toddler.
Okay.
You would say, what is it about that that's bad? Well, it's the fact that he was deprived of all of the things that he had. It's this deprivation of things that makes it bad. Okay. So he applies this to the Lucretian puzzle, right? And he says that, well, non-existence, there was nothing there to be deprived of. But now that you have this life, you have meaning, you have friends, you have family, you have things you love. Now the thing that makes death bad is that you're going to be being deprived of those things. So the deprivation of life is now what makes it bad. Because you wouldn't say that, you know, let's just say all the people who haven't existed before. Like, we wouldn't say that them not existing is bad, because there was never anything for them to exist for. Because it's like billions and billions and billions of people who could have existed. But we don't say that them not existing is bad, because there was nothing that was deprived from them. They just already weren't going to exist.
That makes sense. Interesting. I like how, damn, I never thought about it like that.
It's a crazy thought. It's a really crazy thought.
Cool. What do you think about it? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, I think it's real, and I think it's something that a lot of our fears come from. And the deprivation of something is, unfortunately, you know, sad, but it's kind of interesting what you apply it to, you know, because the Stoics had a different view.
Stoics. Explain that word real quick first.
Got you. So the Stoics were philosophers, late Greece, early Roman philosophers, who pretty much, they had this fundamental belief that life is completely uncontrollable. The only thing that you can control is your attitude towards things. And the highest virtue is wisdom. And they were interesting. They believed that life should be lived in accordance with nature. There was this famous Roman emperor, Marcus Aurelius. He was actually a Stoic philosopher, and it was believed that Rome operated at some of its best time during that. And I'm sure you've heard Memento Mori before. Memento Mori came from him. He wrote it in his meditations, which I actually have right here. But and pretty much Memento Mori is remember that you're going to die. And so he says, remember that you're going to die, and let this determine your thoughts, feelings, and actions moving forward. And so the Stoics used death in a really interesting light, because they used it as something that was a positive, something that they used to motivate them, something that gave them meaning. And you apply this interesting scenario of like, is death really bad? Is us being deprived of something really bad? Well, if you lived your whole life being tortured in a Russian prison, the deprivation of that isn't going to be very bad.
True.
You know, it's, and the way the Stoics viewed it is, well, death is a good thing, because it's that which frees us from the ailments, pains, struggle, and strife of life. Imagine you just got old, you just deteriorated, you just never died.
Crazy.
It would just, it would be disgusting, you know? And so that is what I think the Stoics really used to be like, well, it's that thing that frees us, you know? It's that thing that frees us from the pain of like getting older, and like it's just what it's meant to happen. And it can't be bad.
That's true.
Because it's inevitable.
True.
You know, and it's this thing that is an equalizer for all of us. Like, death is really humbling, you know? It humbles all of us. It's like, you're rich, you're poor, you're this, you're that, you're gonna fucking die. Like, I'm gonna fucking go.
That's very true. Yeah, I think that's very interesting, where you talk about how death is kind of looked at as a positive thing. I see that a lot in like Hinduism and Buddhism roots as well, where that ultimate nirvana is stopping this cycle of reincarnation.
Absolutely.
Right? Which when I first kind of came across the idea, I was like, that's very interesting to me, because you'd think, what, you know, if life was so valuable, what you'd want is to keep being reincarnated, right? Why is it that the freeing of that and ending that cycle is what's wanted? And that was always very like interesting. So that means there's something, you know, there might be something there. Where it's like life you know, we make this assumption that life is so great, you know, without us maybe taking the opposite side of that. Like, maybe, you know, maybe it's not. Right? And I think, you know, that one time that we were talking the rainy day, that's when you had told me about that. You were like, you told me about this one philosopher who like talked literally about why life sucks. And that you should kill yourself.
Vanatar.
Yes. And I was like, I've never thought about that, because that was the first time I was even introduced to the concept that maybe life isn't so great. We just take that we take that totally for granted. Like, life is great, you know?
And he has some interesting views as to why it's bad. And it can get really convincing, you know. He talks about how life is constantly uncomfortable.
Okay.
Because, you know, you're constantly hungry, you're constantly aching your neck,
Yeah.
you're constantly in some kind of pain, you're constantly worried about what's going to happen. Life is just this humming of like anxiety and worry and pain. And like, and he has so many other points that move into that. But it's really interesting that you talk about like, yeah, like, is life really this good thing, and how the Buddhist and Hindus view escaping this wheel, because I guess when you're in this wheel of rebirth or reincarnation, it's kind of this form of immortality of the Atman or the soul, right? It's just kind of immortal, going through these cycles of constantly being reborn and reborn and reborn. And I really contemplated like, well, is immortality any better than death? You know, like, would it be better to just live forever?
What do you think?
That doesn't really work either, you know, because like, if you really think about all these things in life that make it so great, passion, love, you know, novelty,
And
none of these things would matter.
yeah.
You know, if you live for millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of years, it's just, everything would become boring. You know, it's like, think about the best food you can think of. Like what is your favorite food?
I like doses.
Doses fire.
Doses are fire.
Dose is good, right? You eat doses pretty good.
Yeah.
Now you eat 2 doses.
Yeah.
You eat 3
Every
doses.
day.
You eat
Slowly just
10 billion doses.
Yeah.
It's going to be terrible. And that's
Yeah.
kind of how life is. Like,
Interesting.
it's the fact that it's going to be destroyed that allows it to be enjoyed, and the fact that allows its passion and beauty to be created.
That's
You know,
true.
its destruction allows its beauty. You know, and that's how I think how a lot of things
That's crazy.
happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you think about mortality, it's like, okay, everything would become placid, everything would become banal. I mean, it wouldn't be enjoyable, and it's like, love wouldn't matter. Everything could just always be put off until the next day, you know. And it's like, then it's also like, who would really be surviving? You would change time and time and time again. It's like, why would you ever really want to care about your future self?
True.
If that's gonna be someone else, you know,
True.
it's not even really me.
All right, but here I'll give you a counter to that.
All right.
The idea of like immortal also could be, you know, kind of subjective, and let me tell you why. So, for example, to an animal who maybe lives like 1 month long, and that's like its entire lifespan. Us living to 100 is kind of immortal, you know. Like we live way longer than that. To something that only can live until like 1 year or 2 years. Do you think that the way they look at our lives right now is kind of immortal? You know, because we do live for a long time compared to some animals.
Yeah.
So you kind of get what I'm saying?
Yeah. No, I do get what you're saying. I think that's a really good point, and I think that your experience of time differs.
Yeah.
You know, depending on that, because you know they say as you get older, things move faster.
Definitely.
And it's because you know you don't have like things crunching. You know, there's less life for you to live. Things are getting faster and faster and faster. And I think if you're a fly, you know, which say lives a day, your experience of time is going to be significantly slower than our experience of time. You know, because we know we have 100 years. Like we experience this pretty quickly. So like, because you know we look at the cosmos, right? You know, let's say there are these aliens out there who live for fucking millions and millions of years. I'm sure life would move a lot faster to them than it would for us. They would view our lives as flies' lives, right?
True.
And so, like, I think what you're saying is really interesting about immortality being subjective, because it like really is subjective.
Yeah.
You know, it is and it isn't. It's not like,
it is and it isn't.
Yeah. Because I mean, we think that death is going to be the thing that, you know, destroys the universe, but there's also the idea of the big crunch, right? Like the universe expands, and then it comes back in, and then the Big Bang happens, and it's just this happening for all of eternity, you know? So maybe there is this immortality, and maybe the universe will live forever. So it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess I don't. I barely think about death. And on top of that, immortality is something that I just feel like I never really think about. Like, what would life be like if we had that opportunity? You know?
It'd be really boring, man. I don't know. I think it'd get really boring really fast. Like, I think the first, you know, 500 years, 1,000 years would maybe be really enjoyable. But after a while, it's just like, what would we do? I mean, I guess we would have this whole universe to explore, but I mean, eventually we would see it all, you know?
Yeah.
And it's, I'm really been dealing with the idea lately of this like paradoxical, like, let's talk about love, right?
Okay, sure.
Like, you know, us loving someone. Like, let's take it there. The thing that drives us all, right?
Yes, unfortunately.
It's the fact that love can be destroyed that I think allows it to be created. Like, because we know that we can die, I think that, and you know that love can fade, it's this immediacy to not ever kiss anybody with half a heart. It's this immediacy to never exclaim something without full passion, without full energy into it. It's this it's this thing that drives us to really want to be with someone, like, you know, immediately drop everything we're doing to go be with them, you know, this Romeo and Juliet type of love, because we know that it's not going to last forever, you know, it's this thing that we only get to experience for so long.
That makes sense.
And it's like, what would the need for passion and any of this ever be there if it's like, well, I'm going to be with them forever, like,
that's true, yeah,
I don't have to do anything nice for them, whatever, take care of them, like, we're going to be together forever, you know, like, whatever, like, it's interesting how, as you start to really change your views on death from this fearful thing to this potentially positive thing, it becomes beautiful. Like, death really becomes beautiful, and it's like...
Do you think death becoming beautiful makes life less beautiful?
I think death becoming beautiful makes life more beautiful. Because I think death being such a big fear steals our joy. Because how can you ever be present if you're just constantly in this future of doom, you know? Constantly thinking about how that's going to happen. It relates back to terror management theory. Like, we're constantly trying to get away from that, but it's like once you can accept death fully and even see it as something beautiful, life becomes a lot more enjoyable. Life becomes a lot more freeing. You're not heading towards this scary, you know, fucking tunnel of nothingness. You're heading towards something that, you know, could be beautiful. Yeah. And I think it really ties into this interesting thing of now of like, what do you think about the afterlife?
Yeah.
Do you think there's any type of afterlife? Yeah, let's go ahead.
Afterlife. You know what? I've been thinking about that recently. Right now I'm at a place where I think it just ends. Yeah. I think it's just black.
I think it's easier that way, you know? Yeah. Just too complicated too, with all the, you're gonna go to heaven, you're gonna go here, you're gonna go to Nirvana. It's just like, I don't know. It just ends. Yeah. It just ends. I don't even know what that means, but it just ends.
I don't, yeah. So I was actually, you know, before this podcast, I was looking a little into like what actually happens in heaven, right? So everyone said, let's take, for example, there is a heaven. Yeah. You go to it, right? What do people even do there? Is it just living life again, right? So I was looking in a lot of, you know, the one website that I did read off of, it was just saying that there was a lot of like praying that happens, there's a lot of service that goes on, just like peaceful, just everything that you can go down your list that like brings you peace, you basically just do that. But I was thinking like, if that's what you're gonna do for the rest of eternity, I don't know how that would work. Like how do we know that the people in heaven are happy even if everything around them is amazing? Right. Do we know that? We don't.
Right. And I've always had this thought of like, heaven doesn't sound that great either, because like, no matter what I'm doing over there, like, dude, it's eternity. Like,
yeah, it's
just like
it's crazy.
After a while, I'm just gonna be like, fuck. Like, does this end? Like, what am I doing here? Like, it's an interesting thought for me to think that like I can ever really be anywhere for all of eternity and like enjoy it.
Enjoy it. Yeah, that's the hardest part.
Yeah, it just seems like it would all become like meaningless, or like I would stop caring about it. I don't know. Yeah. It's like so much of our purpose is like given. Like once you're a mortal, or like, you know, there's like eternity. It's just like, what's the point of doing it? Yeah. Like for what?
Maybe that's what changes in heaven. Maybe we somehow learn to actually be in the present, and like even if we repeat the same action for an eternity, we're given the skills and tools to actually enjoy that.
Just enjoy it every single time.
So this is a situation. We did a little bit of Googling and we figured out why the camera just keeps cutting off. So basically the SD card is not writing fast enough, so I'm gonna have to go back next time and get a new SD card. But
trash.
Alright, let's get right back to it. So
SIM card.
I swear. Alright. But so something that I was reading about actually before doing this podcast was the concept of two different deaths. So basically everybody faces two deaths. One is when they die, when their body dies and they cease to exist. And two is when everyone that has any memory of them also passes away. So the theory is that people try to elongate that second death from happening as long as possible. Which leads us into these things called immortality projects, which is basically, you know, there's a piece of wood somewhere, I'm going to write my name on it. It's so small, but it's that idea of I want to continue to exist even after I die, you know. I think that's what's really cool about graffiti and like what that actually brings out. It's the idea of I feel like I'm not heard and I want to actually be able to continue to exist even though, you know, I may not live right now. Yeah. And the idea of writing books, podcasts, all of that, they're just immortality projects.
We want to be seen.
Exactly. We want to be seen, and for some reason we want to be remembered. And I think that is a very interesting concept, because the theory was basically saying that is when we come up with these inventions, right, when we come up with these new cool technologies and things like that, oftentimes we think that the reason we do that is to solve some sort of problem, right? So what's a problem that you have? Develop a product to fix it. But this theory was actually saying that the only reason we try to change our environment to make it better for us is so that other people will know that we did it and that we are remembered through those projects themselves, which I never really thought about, but I was like, that's interesting, because let's say, for example, you are content with the way everything is going, right? What is the reason to really go out there and invent something or innovate something that changes something, right? If everything around you is you're okay with it, there's no need for that, right?
Absolutely.
So that's when this, immortality projects come into play, because you can still be content with your life, but still just want to be remembered. Therefore, pushing you into the, this avenue.
That's interesting. That's really interesting thought, and it makes me think about how there's kind of these two sides to immortality projects. It could be either you making this like invention that's gonna save the world, or it can be you shooting up a club so that people remember you. I think a lot of times that our need to be immortal in that way, like you said, the second one, which we are remembered, it can get really cynical, because I think when people feel so unheard and unseen, they'll do anything, If they're not going to become famous, they're going to become infamous. And there are a lot of these people who literally say, like, they just want it to be known, they just want it to be seen. Like, I think this recent one that just happened, like, that's why people post it on Facebook, that's why people give a bunch of signs. Like, if someone really just wanted to do it just to be evil and sinister, they wouldn't need to post it on Facebook, they wouldn't need to do any of that stuff. They're just going to go do what they're going to do. They do it so that people will remember their names, so that people remember the videos, so that they'll become, not idolized, but this presence that will always be remembered as something to fear. And the thing about humans, right, because we have this natural self-preservation, is fear works a lot stronger than these like good things, It's a lot easier for us to remember things that are scary and fearful than things that are positive. And I think that's what a lot of these people were called. That's why you remember things like Columbine, Sandy Hook.
Yeah.
It's crazy, and it leads into this thing of like, should media be using these people's names and bringing up things like that? Because a lot of times they do that so that people will remember their name. It's their immortality project.
Yeah.
It's pretty fucking sinister, and it makes me think about this famous book called The Denial of Death. I think his anthropologist Ernest Becker, and he pretty much talks about how it's similar to this. So their terror management theory came from this Denial of Death, this gigantic book that like changed the way we view death, and it pretty much talked about how we have this psychological awareness of the fact that we're going to die all the time, and we create immortality projects to pretty much satiate that fear. And he says that there's 3 ways that we cope with them. There's the romantic denial of death, there is the religious denial of death, and the creative denial of death. And with the romantic denial of death, you pretty much take someone you love, and when you have this person you love, you pretty much elevate them to almost a deity, and you now become a part of being with that deity, and so now you yourself become infinite or immortal. And then there's the religious denial of death, right, where you pretty much have this deity who you believe in, and you go to join that deity. When you die, for the Buddhists, right, you become one with Nirvana. For the Hindus, you become one with Brahman. For the Christians, you go to heaven and become one with God, and like God is everywhere. And we become a part of the infinite, and we're not going to die. And then there's the creative solution to that, where it's you create something that is so beautiful and divine that it becomes this thing that almost becomes immortal even when you die. Okay. And so we connect to these things as a denial to death.
Like art?
Art, exactly. Yeah. Art's this thing that, Van Gogh, like, no one knew him at the time.
True.
And he became this guy who's now everyone can know the name. Just from that now death. It's super interesting, and I think that it's crazy to think about these things that we do as a response to death, because I mean they're so beautiful, but at the same time it's crazy how there's these just psychological mechanisms that are just constantly running the things we do and don't do, and we have no clue why we do and don't do them.
Interesting.
It's crazy, man.
Yeah, and it's like So because it's like you oftentimes think that the things that push you into doing things is like some sort of excitement for living itself, and the fact that it actually could be death,
right,
that motivates those things is very.
And no one ever say that. And it's like, what if you told people like, the thing that motivates 99% of the things you do is your fear of death? No one would ever agree with that. But it's like the more we examine these things, it's just starting to seem more and more true. We have just a strong need to be divine, and to be immortal,
be God.
Literally. Everyone wants to be God. And this is the comedy of life. This is the joke of life. The paradox of the fact that we are born with this need to survive, but we're gonna die.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
And it's just like a lot of life is just learning how to cope with that.
Yeah.
You know?
And this is actually something really funny, but I was just thinking about it. I was like, you know, people, at some point someone came up with these religions, you know, so I was like, why not? Maybe me. So I was like, if, you know, hypothetically I was ever to start my own religion, I was thinking, the idea of God being someone other than yourself and then you having to eventually be that, and how we were just talking about earlier where we all do want to be God, where if there was a religion where you are the God from the start, and it's, because if you think about it, you do make your whole universe. It's all up in your head, it's everything, you know, everything's about you. And I felt like that idea of God not being somebody big, like, you know, something bigger than you, and it just being you yourself, actually gives you a lot of that power and control over that cycle of life and death. And I feel like that would actually, you know, just empower people to understand that we control all of it.
Right.
And I think that was sidetracked. I have no idea what that had to do with your point.
Yeah,
but yeah, that was because you had said something about, you know, wanting to be God, and then that like struck that just point in my head that, you know, instead of wanting to be God, what if you are God?
Yeah, and I mean, I think there's a lot of power in that thought. You know, there's a lot of different views. You know, like people believe, you know, God, if God created all things, then we are all an extension of God. You know, God, for, you know, Christianity, God made us in His image. Like we are an extension of God. And I've always liked the idea of, you know, views that are like everything is God, like monism. Says that we, like, everything is God. You're God, the bed is God, this is God, because one, it makes everything a part of us, it connects us to everything, and two, it makes everything, you know, have its own beauty, and it makes you recognize your own divinity within yourself, and it makes you not have to constantly, I mean, maybe if more people recognize that, you know, there wouldn't be these like negative immortality projects in the way that there are now, you know, and it sucks. I don't know, it's really crazy, but I think that a lot of life is just learning how to cope with this fear of death.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know, what are some ways that you feel like you've coped with it? If you have at all. Or
that's the best question.
It's a long journey. I don't know if anyone ever actually copes with it, you know.
That podcast you sent me, what was his name? I just want to shout that out.
Aubrey Marcus.
Aubrey Marcus, one of the greatest podcasts I have ever heard in my life.
God.
I think that was when I realized like what some actionable things that I can do, and I think that's like the best place to take this podcast to next. Just what are things that we can actually do, right? In order so one, live way more in the present, like actually be appreciative of the fact that we are alive, you know.
Because the present is a form of immortality in itself, right?
It is.
Because the present is you existing without a past and a future.
Exactly.
You just exist in that moment.
True.
You step off like the little timeline that we all exist in, and you just exist in that moment. Time moves so much slower.
True. And I think that is the coolest part. So that's what I want to talk about. So I was meditating, and I was thinking about what does it mean to be in the present, right? And I was like, if I think about it in seconds, right? Being in the present means being there for every second, right? But the idea of minutes, hours, seconds, or some arbitrary values. We could have something that's way smaller than a second. Something that's valued to be every 1,000th of a second. There's something called a millisecond. We have those, right? And it's like then being present would be being there for every millisecond. Right? And then if you can keep going smaller and smaller, being present is being there for every tiny bit. So in every second, I could have been present 1,000,000 times. And in that way itself, as time expands, right? Because now in a second, there's 1,000,000 seconds. So you do live out a whole infinite lifetime in just a minute. If you really break it up into these millions of tiny, tiny pieces, it's like time is really in your hands. And I think in that podcast, they were talking about how when you're in this state of flow, so they create. So when they are in that flow of making a podcast or whatever, they talk about how time just expands.
Right.
And it's like they feel like it just goes forever.
Right.
And if you can somehow make it so your whole life is like that, then it kind of does feel like an eternity.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, and it's not, I feel like people always talk about life being short. And it's not that life is short, it's that you're wasting your life on things that are making it short, you know? Life doesn't feel short when you are actually present to what you're doing things that you're enjoying. When you're doing shit that you constantly don't want to do, you're constantly waiting for the weekend every single week, of course life's going to feel short. A whole year just passed by. If you're waiting for Saturday so you could go get drunk, then you don't even remember anything. You wake up hungover half the day laying in bed, and then you start work again. You're never actually being present. And then, you know, I'm doing the social media cleanse right now, and something that it's really showing me is how much slower time moves when I'm not just... So I mean, think about it. Like, you're on your phone, You know, you go do whatever you gotta do. In between that, you're on your phone. You're doing whatever you gotta do. You're on your phone, and then you go to sleep. When have you ever actually like looked around to like perceive time actually happening? You know, you're just always on your phone.
Very true.
And
that's a very good point, actually.
Yeah, it's crazy. And like, you know, like just sitting there and doing something as simple as looking at a tree swaying in the wind, as corny as it sounds, like it is really beautiful. And I just feel like time moves so much slower when I'm just in the moment. Like I'm just hyper present. And beyond just literally just not being on my phone, social media primes our brain. You know, it's constantly sending in information all the time. That's like blocking our signal for our ability to be present. You constantly have all this stimulation going in that you're focusing on. You know, you get off your phone, it's like you get on your social media, Kobe's dead, you know, this, and you're just constantly thinking about that shit all the time. You go back on, you can never just think about like, how am I doing? What is going on right here? What is going on? You're just constantly focusing on everyone else. And it's like you never actually have any time for yourself. Like the ability to be present truly does bring you so much more time. The ability to do things that really do make you feel alive. You know, I heard Jason say this in this podcast, like, we're not looking for happiness. We're looking for the experience of being alive.
Yes.
And
so fast.
How often do you find yourself seeking things that make you feel alive? Why do you think we have these adrenaline junkies? Why do we have all these people constantly doing things that, even if it's scary, even if it's terrifying, even if it's painful, masochist, anything that reminds you that you are truly alive. You know, that's really just what we're all searching for.
Yeah. No. Wow. It's just so much to like really process, because after understanding that, the next craziest thing to process is that it's all on you. Yeah. No one's coming to help you. Yeah. Like no superhero is coming and teaching you how to do this.
Absolutely.
You have to go out of your way, figure out how to do this, and then implement it in your life.
Absolutely.
Your parents aren't going to tell you to do it. They may never have even thought about this.
It's your responsibility.
Yeah, it's really 100% you. So it's like knowing that and then actually doing something about it, I think, is the next step for all of us.
Right. And you know, luckily that's why, you know, there's philosophy as a remedy for that. You know, there's psychology, and you know, I've looked at both to really try and get something from it. And I think psychology, you know, does a really good job at really helping you deal with your stuff. There's this book that is amazing. Anybody who is alive should get it. It's called The Feeling Good Handbook by David D. Burns.
I've heard about that one.
Dude.
Good?
So fire, bro.
Okay.
So fire. It's a cognitive behavioral therapy book that you just can do for yourself. And
that is amazing.
You know, I'm reading this book, and you know, I see this chapter on death, and I'm like, this is kind of what I've been looking for. You know, something that really helps me deal, because it's like once you can deal with that, this base, then you can deal with all the things up here.
True.
But it's like people are just trying to deal with all these topical problems without really addressing that they have this really big fear of this, and people just deny it their entire lives. You know, and you know, people talk about how the denial of death. You know, he talks about how depression is kind of this inability to stay in the illusion that you're not gonna die. You know, you just become hyper aware of it. Your immortality project is either failing or not doing anything to just keep you in the illusion that you're gonna stay alive. And so, so there are ways to deal with it. You know, this fear, like at the end of the day, it's a thought. You know, as much as it's like a feeling. You know, all feelings are thoughts, right? And pretty much, he breaks it down into like 3 or 4 ways that you can really look at the fear of death, because it's kind of this vague thing. So it's like most people either fear the process of dying, slipping into the state of being unconsciousness, that transition, being in death, like being in death afterwards, like what happens after, or what happens to your family, you know, after you die, what happens to the people you care about. And it's like, so for the process of dying, that's not really a fear of dying. That's a fear of being alive. You know, that's fear of being alive. That's something you experience when you're alive. And you know, people are scared of the pain that they're gonna feel. But I mean, you've experienced pain when you had a broken bone. You've experienced pain when you've been sick, and you dealt with it. You know, you got through it. And you were strong enough to handle it. So it's, what is to make you think that you're not gonna be strong enough to handle that then? You know, what's gonna make you think that you're gonna not be fine, but you know, you're gonna be able to handle it. And so that's something that really can ease into that pain. And then the second one is slipping into unconsciousness. You know, people fear that transitory state of like, when does it happen? You know, but it's the same thing that happens when you fall asleep. You know, and I don't think anyone's scared of going to sleep. You know, no one's like. I mean, actually,
I know. Recently, I just started thinking.
Once you start thinking about death, you do start thinking about it.
Because it's like you assume you're gonna wake up. It's like if you know, if there's a chance you don't, that would be scary. And all of a sudden, sleeping is not scary.
Dude, I used to, when I was a kid, I used to sit there and try and like map out when I was gonna be unconscious. Like, how does it happen? Because it's like just like a snap. Like, there's no time when you're actually like, oh, I went unconscious then. Like, used to try and sit there and be like, when do I become unconscious? When do I become? I was a weird ass little kid, but I used to be like, when do I become unconscious? Like, yeah, no, bro, I had some neurosis. So no. But and then I realized it's just like falling asleep. Now I don't fear going to sleep, and so it's interesting because a lot of times people even fear anesthesia and like slip into that state of unconsciousness. But it's just the way you frame it. Like people look forward to going to sleep. People just want to sleep and nap all day, and that's slipping to a state of unconsciousness. It's really just your view on it. So then comes, I think, the two bigger ones, which is what happens to your family. Who's going to take care of them? Are they going to be okay? Once I'm gone. And what that makes me think about is the fact that you've had times where you're separated from your family. We're separated from our family right now in San Diego, and they're okay. They're doing their thing, like they're perfectly fine. And so when you're gone, just like we kind of are right now, it would make us think that they wouldn't be okay. And there are people who deal with the fear, with people dying all the time, and they're able to find happiness again. They're able to turn it into something not necessarily positive, but something that gives them meaning. Like my dad dying was one of the worst and best things that ever happened to me because the person allowed me to become. And so, you got to understand that the people who you leave, they're gonna be okay. Like they're gonna be okay. They're gonna make it.
That is a hard thing to process, but it is very true.
And some people don't want to process that. You almost don't want to be like they're gonna be okay. And they'll never like forget about you. They'll never leave you. But they'll be okay. And that is the dichotomy between the cognitive dissonance of that feeling of, I want them to be okay, but at the same time I don't want them to be okay.
Crazy.
I don't want them to be okay without me.
So all of these are the fears that the person themselves is dying is gonna have.
Yeah.
I've been thinking recently about, why is it that other people are so sad when someone else dies, right? Instead of when they die. And every time I kept coming to a place of like selfishness for some reason.
Absolutely.
And I just kept thinking that when someone passes away, you're not sad because they're like in pain or they're like, oh, they're done. They're like free.
Yeah.
But you're sad because, oh, I didn't get to tell them this the last time, or I didn't. It always starts with the I didn't, or they didn't get to finish their dreams or whatever. But
or they're not going to be in your life anymore.
Exactly.
They're not going to give you what
you needed,
the utility that they used to give you.
And it's like, oftentimes it seems like when people are extremely sad about it, it comes from a place of something is not going to happen for me. And I was like, that makes when people get really sad about death a lot, it's oftentimes it's like, interesting, I wonder where this is coming from, and I think that is an important place to start from, to question yourself.
Am I being selfish in this moment? And people covered up with because it's like, the Stoics labeled death as an empty distress, because it's like, what you're sad about, like, is it the place they're in? Because like if they're in nothing, then like there's nothing to be, like there's nothing that, it's like, what is it? Oh, it's the fact that they can't affect my life the way they used to, or affect their life the way they used to. And I think it's understanding that no one is ever going to accomplish all their like dreams and goals. Like no one does all of it. You just try and do as much as you can. People they had so much more they were going to do. Dude, there's always more.
There is always more.
Or if not, they were stagnant. It's like there's always more you're going to do. You're not going to get to accomplish it all. It's about really just getting as much as you can.
True.
And,
maybe.
Yeah.
So I feel like we could just talk about this forever.
Yeah. There is one last thing though, what I feel like is the important part about one of the fears of death too, that Burns talks about, which is that once you're dead, because this has been the big one for me.
Okay,
like,
tell me about it.
It's the fear of like the experience of being dead. But it's completely irrational. Because if there really is nothingness, I mean, there is not going to be an experience of nothingness. Like you can't experience nothing, and you can't use any tools of logic to be alive. When you're alive, to experience nothingness, because it's literally the opposite of that. And I think so often than not, I'm sure it's happened to you, happened to me, when you get in that like deep meditation where you're just like, oh fuck, I'm gonna die, and you start thinking deeply about it, and you almost start like putting yourself in this like, I don't know, fucking virtual reality of like you being dead, and you're like, oh shit, and you get all this anxiety, but it's like, that's not it, because that's you trying your best to experience nothingness, but you can't experience nothingness because there's not going to be anything to experience. And so either when you die, it's going to be something, it's going to be the unknown, because so many people fear the unknown, but I think the truth is we're constantly experiencing the unknown. Like, I don't know what's going to happen in 5 seconds. Truly. Something could bash through this wall and we could die. I don't know enough. I don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. We're constantly dealing with the unknown, but we're constantly coping with it. So the truth is, you've been coping with the unknown since you were born. And then there's this fear of, so it's going to be something, right? It's going to be something unknown. But then once you get there, it's no longer unknown. It's something you now know. Whether it's heaven or whether it's hell, it's going to be beautiful. So it becomes something known. And then there's the nothing, but if there's going to be nothing there, then there's truly nothing to worry about. Because you're not going to feel anything. Like, people want anesthesia when they go into surgeries because they don't want to feel pain. The nothingness is literally going to be absolutely nothing.
Yeah.
So when it comes to the fear of death, it's really easy to get like really caught up and really neurotic about it. But when you kind of break it down in these sections and really try to examine the fear of death, you kind of recognize that maybe it's a little bit more neurotic and a little bit more fearful than it needs to be.
Yeah. Yeah. Is that how you process? Is these the processes that you went through?
Yeah.
You feel like
definitely very helpful. I think overall, for me, it's just been truly accepting the experience of not having control. And understanding that I literally don't have any control. And if I keep on sitting here being scared of this, it's going to happen no matter what, dude.
Yeah.
It's literally going to happen no matter what. And I can just sit here every day, terrified of it, not live my life to the fullest, keeping myself diminished because of this fear, or I can just go into it, and like, I love this poem. He says, do not go gentle into that good night, rage against the light. And it's, don't go gentle into it, it's going to happen no matter what. So go in there raging against it. Go in there making yourself as big as possible. Make yourself as immortal as possible in a special way.
Yeah.
But understand that it's going to happen. You can truly be attached to life. Not attached. You can truly be in life and experience it fully. Like the Buddhists do. They create these beautiful 5-year mandalas and then they erase it right after. You can truly be experiencing life fully, but not detached, and truly understanding. Truly being able to access, like, hey, this is going to leave, at some point in time. Let me truly cherish it.
Valid.
Yeah, man. It's a heavy topic. It's not a topic a lot of people want to talk about, but it's important, man.
And it is important. Now, now that it's at the forefront, I'm glad that it's something that people are talking about and thinking about, because I think the next step is to really, instead of spending all this time, being sad about someone dying, to really put all that energy into appreciating life.
And when people see this topic, when they see death, they're gonna want to avoid it. Their natural terror management theory is gonna kick in. They're gonna be like, oh, I don't want to see something about death. Like, that sounds it sounds boring. But like you said, it's about understanding that there's actually something beautiful. It's about life. Like the examination of death is to truly get a good look at the picture of life.
Facts.
That's really how I feel about it.
Yeah. Thank you, though. Hey, I appreciate you. It was a good conversation.
Yeah, bro. It was fire.
All right, Burnin with G. Out.
That's right.